the future which sometimes means leaving the past and certain partners behind. It's just business, Quinn. You were always too sentimental for this. The clinking of champagne flutes around the table was a sharp, hostile sound. I watched the tiny bubbles rise in Xavier's glass, his smile a perfect portrait of condescending pity. Our investors, our biggest client, all of them smiling back at him. My vision narrowed to his face, the smug satisfaction in his eyes. I took a slow sip of water. You'll find sentiment is the least of your problems. Our partnership began 4 years ago at a tech incubator, one of those aggressively optimistic spaces with exposed brick and free kombucha. I had the code, a logistics optimization algorithm that was elegant, powerful, and deeply unsexy. Xavier had the charisma. He wore $1,000 suits like they were pajamas and could sell water to a drowning man. We seemed like a perfect fit. I remember the night we landed our first major client, working until 3 a.m. in our tiny WeWork pod, fueled by greasy pizza and the dregs of a cold brew pitcher. We didn't even have chairs. We sat on the floor, laptops balanced on our knees, sketching out the implementation plan on a napkin. It felt like we were building a rocket ship with our bare hands. The first red flag was so small I almost missed it. An invoice for a $5,000 consulting fee from a firm I'd never heard of. When I asked, Xavier laughed it off. Just a networking expense, Quinn. You get bogged down in the details. He made me feel small and naive, so I let it go. The first 2 years were a blur of growth. We signed the lease on a real office on King Street, the kind with glass walls and a skyline view. We celebrated landing the Viridian account that October with dinner at the Grove, where Xavier ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than our first server. All I saw was progress, but looking back, the imbalance was already stark. I was the one pulling all-nighters, refining the codebase, managing the dev team. He was the one handling the money and the client-facing magic, which increasingly involved dinners I wasn't invited to and strategic retreats that left me running the entire operation solo. He'd call me the engine and himself the driver. It sounded like a compliment at the time. The cracks started to show. He hired a junior marketing associate without even mentioning it to me first. Started taking investor calls from his car, summarizing them for me later in vague, dismissive terms. I rationalized it all. He's the sales guy, I'm the product guy. This is how it works. I was too busy building the engine to notice the driver was steering us off a cliff. The accidental clue arrived not as a bang, but as a bland, automated email from our bank. Your request to add a new signatory to business account ending in 45B1 has been processed. I hadn't requested anything. My blood ran cold. That night I stayed late long after everyone had gone home. I didn't need a pie, not yet. I just needed our own servers. It took me a week of sifting through archived files and using a data recovery tool to find what he'd tried to delete. It wasn't just a file. It was an entire shadow ledger. A parallel world of finances where our company, Synergy Logic, was paying exorbitant fees to shell corporations. I followed the money. One was registered to his brother-in-law, another to an LLC at his home address. The scale of the betrayal widened with every click. It wasn't just theft. It was a complete erasure of my existence. I found emails to our investors where he was positioning me as an unstable, burnout risk co-founder. I found a business plan for a new company, Synergy Future, which he was pitching to a new investment firm, Zenith Capital. The plan was built entirely on my proprietary code. He was selling my life's work out from under me. The final public humiliation came at that restaurant, a sleek place called Lumina with views over the entire city. Xavier had invited our top client, Peterson, and 2 executives from Zenith Capital. He told me it was a dinner to smooth over Peterson's concerns about our recent restructuring. When I arrived, he was holding court, a bottle of champagne on ice. That's when he gave his toast. You built a great engine, Quinn, but I'm the one who knows how to drive the car. This is my win. His words hung in the air, a public execution. The investors smiled politely, Peterson looked uncomfortable, and I just felt a profound, chilling calm. The noise of the restaurant faded. The rage I expected never came. It was replaced by a cold, clear certainty. My eyes fell on a small detail, a custom-branded pen from Zenith Capital lying next to Xavier's bread plate. In his arrogance, he'd overlooked the most critical clause in our partnership agreement, a mutual IP and non-compete clause that was ironclad. And in his rush, he had structured his new company, Synergy Future LLC, as a direct subsidiary of our shared parent company to save on legal fees. A fatal administrative shortcut. The next morning, I called Ms. Vance, a corporate litigator whose reputation was surgical. She didn't offer sympathy. She asked for data. Her retainer was $25,000. Her timeline was 90 days. I transferred the money and sent her a secure link to a folder containing everything. For weeks, I lived in silence. Xavier sent a few texts. Hey man, hope no hard feelings. Let's connect soon. I nearly shattered my phone, but Vance's voice was in my head. Let him think you're broken. Arrogance is our best asset. The evidence I'd gathered was irrefutable. 7 distinct pillars of his fraud. The shadow ledger, cross-referenced with bank statements showing 47 fraudulent transactions totaling over $150,000. The server logs proving he'd built the Synergy Future business plan on our company time, using our company resources. A timestamp photo of the original code architecture in my handwriting from a whiteboard in our first office. And the ironic masterstroke, an affidavit from his own brother-in-law, detailing the kickback scheme in exchange for immunity. Vance's strategy was brilliant. We didn't sue Xavier. We filed a suit directly against Zenith Capital for investing in stolen intellectual property, naming Synergy Logic as the rightful owner. We set a trap, and Xavier's new partners were the bait. The execution took place not in a courtroom, but in a sterile, soulless boardroom at Zenith Capital's headquarters. It was a mandatory arbitration meeting. Xavier was there with a slick, expensive-looking lawyer, exuding confidence. Zenith partners were patched in via a massive video screen, their faces grim. Before his lawyer could speak, Ms. Vance stood. Before we begin, we'd like to present our preliminary findings. Xavier actually chuckled. Findings. Quinn's been crying in a corner for 3 months. Vance ignored him, and the first slide appeared on the screen. It was the financial fraud, a web of transactions, shell companies, and dates. Xavier's smile tightened, but he didn't flinch. His lawyer was ready for this. It would argue they were legitimate business expenses. Then came the second wave. Vance advanced to the final slide, a side-by-side organizational chart. On the left, our company, Synergy Logic Inc. On the right, his new one, Synergy Future LLC. A clean red line showed the legal link through the parent company. He had built his escape hatch on my land. Then Vance pressed a button on her laptop. A voice memo played, Xavier's voice, from a call with a mutual acquaintance 2 months prior. Yeah, I just spun up a new LLC under the old holding company, saved a fortune on legal fees. Quinn is too much of a mess to ever figure it out. The line went dead. The investors on the screen began talking over one another. Xavier shot to his feet, his face crimson. A shaking finger pointed at me. You have no right. That company was dead. I resurrected it. I made it valuable. I met his gaze and spoke for the first time all morning. You didn't resurrect it, Xavier. You just signed its death certificate. The aftermath was a swift and silent detonation. Zenith Capital's lawyers ended the arbitration immediately and froze all of Xavier's funding. My phone vibrated for 24 hours straight with calls and texts from Peterson, from former colleagues, from people I thought were his allies. I ignored them all. To avoid a public court battle, the settlement was brutal. Xavier was forced to sign over his entire 50% stake in our original company, which, thanks to his own legal shortcut, now officially owned all the IP and the Zenith Capital investment. Final judgment awarded me sole ownership and a settlement of $1.2 million to cover the stolen funds and legal fees. 6 months later, I saw him. He was working at a big-box electronics store, wearing an ill-fitting blue polo shirt with a name tag. The charisma was gone, replaced by the tired, hollowed-out look of a man who had lost a war of his own making. My new office is smaller, but it's filled with light. We're called Logic Forward now. My team is a small, fiercely loyal group of 3. The money is in the bank, but the real profit is the peace. It's sleeping through the night. It's the quiet confidence that comes from taking back what is yours. Last week, my new lead investor, a sharp woman named Zara, was reviewing our history. She looked up from the documents, a curious smile on her face. This was a messy divorce, she said. Weren't you worried the whole thing was just too sentimental? I leaned back in my chair and looked out at the city I had earned back. It's just business.